This call is being recorded.
And welcome to First Bite, the Pride of Detroit midweek Detroit Lions podcast, where we bring on a guest to talk all things Detroit Lions, news, analysis, predictions, all that sort of fun stuff. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I am I'm the editor-in-chief of Pride of Detroit. Again, still getting used to that. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. With me co-hosting this week is Chris Perfett, at Chris Perfett on Twitter. Chris, how are we doing tonight?
I don't get a fancy new title.
We'll see. You got to work for it.
What do you mean? Oh, work for it.
Listen, we're going through a whole new power structure. The Lions are going through a whole new power structure. We're going to get into it. We're going to have a meeting here and kind of work out, maybe a culture task force meeting to see what what your new role is.
This is why you don't let millennials ever become bosses, because then you tell them seniority and they don't know what that is. You just don't do it. Ever. No, we're having fun, Jeremy, and I'm excited to do this today because you know what? Screw it. I'm going to shut up. You introduce him.
Yes. Well, I'm sure what you were going to say is that we have one of your very favorite guests that we've had on the show multiple times. One of my favorite guests as well. ESPN's Michael Rothstein is with us at Mike Rothstein on Twitter. Michael, thanks for joining us again, buddy.
Michael.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. I know it's been a couple months. I'm trying to remember the last time we did that, whether it was right after the Bob Quinn, Patricia firing, or if it was right around the last game of the season. I don't know. January felt like 6 months to me, so yeah. I'm just pretending it's July, even though it's 30 degrees in Michigan right now.
The time doesn't work anymore, Mike. I remember I was on the air with someone, and I think for some reason Mr. and Mrs. Smith came up as a movie, and for some reason I thought that movie was 5 years ago, and it was 15.
Yeah, so, I can tell you where I saw it. I saw it in Boone, North Carolina. Yeah, I saw that movie in Boone, North Carolina, because my brother lived there for about a year. My brother's younger than me, and I was living in Virginia at the time, and I went down to visit him, and we went to see that movie in the movie theater in Boone, North Carolina, home, obviously, college home at least, of former Lions punter Sam Martin.
So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mike is a big Mr. and Mrs. Smith fan. He will be covering all of the miniseries coming soon from streaming service X.
Hey, I'm going to be a company man here and tell you that I am really excited for WandaVision's finale here tomorrow. And I don't know whether it drops at midnight or not. I should know that. But if it does, I may just stay up and watch it because I've really enjoyed the series. And obviously, we're off the rails as usual.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have a promo code you can throw the listener some way to make it worth their while?
Promo code, hey, it helps me if you pay that. So go sign up for Disney Plus. You also get ESPN Plus as well if you bundle it.
Hey, there you go.
And Hulu.
All right, let's get into some Lions talk. I want to talk a topic that we've kind of avoided over the past week or two because Chris Spielman had some comments a couple weeks ago regarding Sheila Ford Hamp's role with the team, and it kind of caused a kerfuffle. Mike, I think you were actually one that asked Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell some questions about the infrastructure, the power structure, that sort of thing. Let's get into that. Let's examine that a little bit because I think maybe there are some concerns about what is currently set up in terms of who has what decisions and all that sort of stuff. I'm kind of curious about what you thought of the answers this week and what your thoughts are on how the power structure is set up currently.
Well, I am just still trying to figure out if I am an alpha, first of all, and if I need to then know when to concede, if that ends up being the case. Listen, let's start here, right? Sheila Ford Hamp, people can say whatever they want. She owns the team.
Yeah.
She can literally do whatever she wants because, say it with me, she owns the team. So if she wants to sit on meetings, okay, that's her right. She could be Jerry Jones if she wanted to. She could be an owner that doesn't even pay attention. She is neither one of those things. Sheila Ford Hamp, and I think I was on maybe soon after I wrote the profile on her in September, or we've talked about it, I know, on the show before, that the one thing that she's going to do is if she is involved in something, she's going to actually be involved. But she's going to let the people that she hires to make decisions actually, make the decisions. And that's clearly what she's doing here. And you heard that from Dan Campbell and from Brad Holmes that, like, yeah, they may have her there. Like, she may sit in a meetings because she wants to know what's going on. But when they've asked her opinion, she's like, I paid y'all. You do what's right. And of course, listen, that's no different than any owner. And that's no different than years past whenever there's been a big ticket decision, right? Who's had to sign off on it? The person signing the checks. And who's signing the checks? Well, someone with the last name Ford or Hamp. So that I don't understand why people got so annoyed over that, other than I think it's the offseason and people sometimes like to find things to be annoyed about. Like, of course your owner is going to sit out on meetings. And just think about it too. If you are, all I heard, granted, I didn't start covering the team in 2013, but all I heard was that ownership doesn't care. Ownership doesn't care. This is just a paycheck to them. How often did we all hear that as people who cover the team? Now you have an owner that's caring and you're like, whoa, wait a minute now. We don't want that. Like, make up your mind. You don't get both sides of the pot. Pick a side. Like, you either want your owner to not care, or you want your owner to at least care enough to maybe be different and change things. And I think that's what we're seeing. So to me, Sheila Ford Hamp, that's like a non-starter or non-issue. Like, of course she's going to be in meetings if she wants to be. And if you saw what she did last year, this should not come as a surprise to you because she was around last year, even in a COVID environment.
Yeah, I think that last point there is kind of what probably touched off, is that we're not used to this in Detroit. It's a complete change. And I mean, we have seen a lot of owner stories kind of break in the past few years about, and it's never really been good when owners have jumped in. It's been, Dan Snyder's kind of being held up as kind of that example. But I remember people similarly freaking out about Shad Khan when Shad was like, yeah, after dealing with Tom Coughlin, I kind of want to have like, a sign off on this. But as you say, like, it's their teams at the end of the day. So, I mean, I think it's some concern that it is going to be a Dan Snyder situation. But again, that just doesn't fit, I think, the profile of Ford Hamp herself.
And
not in the slightest.
And I think really the main source of consternation is simply the fact that it's a Ford doing all this, right?
The people, Fords in the past, William Clay Ford and even Martha were very, very. Some would say to a fault with William Clay Ford, very hands off.
Right, but I think the people that were saying they didn't care enough, they're just done with the Ford. So now that there's a Ford kind of in there mingling, that's probably where the concern is. I'm with all you guys. I think it's ridiculous. I think you want an owner that at least knows how the sausage is made, right? Like, how else is she supposed to, if things don't go right with this regime, how is she going to know where things went wrong if she's not there in the meetings?
Absolutely. And the other part of it to me that I find so funny is that people also, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, were so up in arms about Rod Wood. And it's like, well, if Sheila's not going to be around, then who's going, like, it's not like they're just going to like be like, hey, we hired you. We don't care what, go.
Rod Wood, famous.
You're spending our money. Go for it. Knock yourself out. Like, no, come on. Like you don't get your cake and eat it too, and then get to also go and get a Frosty at Wendy's. Like, you don't get all of those options to have together. Like, you don't. And to me, I think that what we've seen is an evolution of ownership, because when William Clay Ford owned the team, it was really his son who was around doing a lot of the day-to-day stuff as kind of proxy for the family, right? And Tom Lewan, but Bill Jr. was around. Like, he knew what was going on. He was the one who sat on committees. Then, William Clay Ford Sr. dies, and Martha takes over. And Martha was more involved than people want to give her credit for. I mean, she showed up weekly. She was at every game, like literally every game. She was while she was the owner, and that, I think, was another step in a direction. Right. And now you're seeing the next evolution in that, in what Sheila's doing. And I think that that's going to be what should be expected. Again, I think that this is a positive for the Lions, because I don't get the sense she's going to be like, you know what, I'm just going to be GM now too. Like, I don't get that sense, because there's like 7 people they hired that have that type of like credibility / pedigree / like experience, that would be just like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. I can't believe we spent 5-10 minutes even talking about this, because to me and I think I tweeted it at the time when like someone, I forget who, brought it up on 97.1, because that's where it came from. Like, I was like, why is this a thing? Like, again, she owns the team. These are her family's billions of dollars. Like, I'm sorry, if I was a billionaire and I was giving millions upon millions of dollars to people, I would want to know what was going on too. That just seems smart.
Right. But sorry.
I was just gonna say she's not running down to get off the yacht and make the pick like Dan Snyder. So,
right.
Yeah. Go on, Jeremy.
I want to bring up, because you brought up the Lions have 7 people in that front office with the pedigree to make those kind of roster decisions, and I think that might be the one place where there might be a legitimate criticism of this front office setup, this power structure, in that there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You got Ray Agnew, you got John Dorsey, you got Mike Disner, you got Dan Campbell, who says he's going to be very much involved in all these roster decisions. Is that how you see it? Can this kind of work with that many personalities? I know they say, it's all going to be kumbaya and we're no egos and things like that. But like, I mean, the elephant in the room is John Dorsey hasn't necessarily been that. He's kind of had some power structure battles, it sounds like, from Cleveland. So I don't know. Is there right to at least have some skepticism of how hunky-dory they seem to be pitching this whole thing?
Absolutely. And that's why I asked the question of Dan Campbell. And if, for those who didn't watch the press conference, I asked him, well, if you disagree, 2 of you disagree, who makes the decision? And he says, Brad and I do. And then I was like, okay, that's great. But who makes the decision when the 2 of you disagree? And that's when he gave this whole long answer. And that's where the alpha, conceding line came from, which was the line of the press conference, at least from Dan Campbell, and then Brad Holmes's different flavors was his line of the press conference. Right. They're certainly more entertaining than Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, to say the least. But as far as that's a major concern. I wouldn't say major. That is a legitimate concern, and they can say all these things right now because they haven't had to make a major player decision yet other than Matthew Stafford, which was kind of made for them in a lot of ways, right? Like, we'll see what they do with Kenny Golladay. They haven't had to agree or disagree on a major free agent signing. And I don't know if that's going to come this year because of their cap situation and just the reality of things. They haven't had to agree or disagree on a draft pick or a 53-man roster decision of maybe a high-priced veteran that one person likes and one person doesn't. Like, that's where it's going to get interesting. So I think right now they can say all these things and believe it, but they haven't coached a game. They haven't made a major franchise decision outside of Matthew Stafford. So let's see what this looks like in a year is kind of where I'm at. And if they can make it work, hey, that's awesome for them if they can figure it out, because they've done something that I think a lot of people can't do and a lot of people have tried to do and have failed in doing that. But I think, again, that all comes from Sheila Ford Hamp, and that's what she has wanted from like the jump when she got rid of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. And she said that in that press conference the day that they fired them was, I want everybody on the same page, everybody on the same team. So she's hiring those people. And listen, the one thing that I think is a good thing with what they've done is that everybody has different experiences from different places, right? But almost everybody that's in a major decision role in that front office has a tie to Brad Holmes or a connection to Brad Holmes, whether it's Ray Agnew from the Rams or John Dorsey from having, really wanted Brad Holmes on his staff. So there's that. And then Dan Campbell's obviously the outlier there, but almost everybody on Dan Campbell's staff, it feels like he knew in some form or fashion, even though, again, they had different experiences. So it's not like the last regime where everybody came from the same place and the same thing. So it's not really groupthink. It's just guys with different groups of experiences, but they all know each other already. So you would have to think they have some sort of familiarity. Where I think it will get interesting is if Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell disagree and those two sides disagree. And that's where I wonder what would happen down the road. But listen, winning cures everything. And I think everybody understands this is going to be a long building process. But yes, I think there is reason to have question, as I did, about what this is really going to look like. And listen, it could be as simple as they don't want to say it, but Campbell has control over the 53 and Brad, and I don't know, this is just me speculating, just to be clear. Right. Campbell has 53-man control, Brad Holmes has control over over the draft and free agency, like a lot of places that is what the power structure ends up being. So it's possible that that's just what the power structure is, right, and they just don't want to call it that.
Because they kept saying, like, the term too, like, everyone has a defined role. They kept saying that. They wouldn't say what the roles were, but they kept saying everyone's got a defined role.
Right. So I don't know if y'all watch The West Wing or did. It's like my favorite show all time on television. But early on in that I think it was the first season or the second season, Josh Lyman is one of the characters. He goes up to the press room and he is not prepared to do this. And he talks about the president's plan to fight inflation. The president doesn't have a plan to fight inflation. So then there's a secret plan that is deemed that he has a secret plan to fight inflation because he's not. So it involves in this whole thing because it just of a misstep or like, so that's like when that defined role thing comes out. It's like, well, what are the defined? Well, we're not going to say what the defined. Well, all right. Like, come on.
You mentioned winning cures all. And I think, well, first off, to the question of what are they going to do if they just butt heads, it's just, they're just going to be alphas, man. They're just going to be alphas and I'll give the floor or whatever. I did want to talk about, though, you mentioned winning cures all, which brings us to, there's always the question of winning culture, and everyone just says, oh, you want to build build better culture. You just win. I don't know if I agree with that, but clearly the Lions also agree with me that they don't agree with that, because we have this culture task force now, which has brought us some interesting lines, like Chris Spielman sitting down with everyone, asking them what one pride means to them. And some, I'm sure there's probably trust falls in there too, and corporate team retreats and everything.
Reps courses.
Oh God, it takes me back to my days when I had to do marketing. I hate that stuff, but just, I'm just curious, like, what this thing is right now. Cause like on one hand, it is cool to see everyone kind of getting on the same page, but I think already in sports, you already have that locus that is, this is a big giant team sport where everyone comes together and everyone's kind of already preternaturally disposed to teamwork. So what exactly is going on with let me make sure I get this right, the Culture Task Force, the CTF?
I'm a big fan, and Jeremy's heard me say this before. I'm a big fan of saying when you're not sure about something, you don't know. I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer, and I am going to say I honestly don't know. I don't. Maybe that's a bad thing as a beat person to say, but I don't know what this thing's going to look like. I don't even know what it means. It's kind of just, it could very, very much just be this like nebulous thing that Chris Spielman's trying to do. It could be something that is very legitimate. I don't have the answer to that question, Chris. I wish I did. I think it, probably falls in line. And again, this is just me speculating, right? With what we just talked about, which is like they want everybody to be on the same page from the top down, and that comes from Sheila. And sure, I mean, listen, when we talk about defined roles, I mean, what is Chris Spielman's defined role? We still don't know.
Yeah.
And it's special assistant to Sheila and Rob, but also guy who's around and doing everything. I don't know, man. Like I just like that. That's sure. But I understand why he's there. And to me, I mean, so Texas, right? To go to the college space for a minute. So everyone knows Matthew McConaughey is like the minister of culture at Texas,
all
right?
All right.
I mean, like that's but that's really what I like when they hired Chris Spielman. Like that's what that felt like to me. It's like you're hiring somebody who has great ties to to the organization, or in Texas's case, the school, who is a great ambassador for the organization, or in Texas's case, the school, and he's going to be involved in a whole bunch of different things as Matthew McConaughey is living in Austin. But like that's kind of what I think Chris Spielman's role is. He just maybe has a little bit more football experience than Matthew McConaughey would have, running anything in an athletic department. So that's kind of, I think, where I see it.
Yeah. And
let me ask you then. Oh, sorry, real quick. Really.
Yeah, I was just saying, in case anyone doesn't know, what we're talking about, why the whole culture task force, Chris Spielman talked about it on Tori Petrie's One Pride podcast. Basically, Chris Spielman is doing everything, and he's got a group of 3 other individuals helping to establish and maintain a culture that also bridges together the football and business side of operations.
Let me just to close this up then. Let me ask Mike, since we're on the subject. What does One Pride mean to you?
It is the slogan that I see all of the time during football season. That is what it means to me. You knew what that answer was going to be.
Very poor culture.
That's probably a better answer than you thought you were going to get from me.
Very poor culture right now, Mike. We're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to send Chris Spielman over to
as I have long said, and much to the consternation of a certain segment of Lion fans, I am not a fan of the franchise. I am not a hater of the franchise. I am merely someone who covers it on a day-to-day basis. So One Pride to me means it's that's part of my job. Come on. You knew what was coming. Come on.
It has more meaning to me than Dagger Time, I will say that, but not much. Anyways, with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to look ahead to free agency, the draft. We're going to make some off-season predictions. Again, we're here with ESPN's Michael Rothstein. We'll be right back on First Bite. Okay, we're still live. We're still in front of... A lot of people
saying you need to sit up, Mike.
Yeah, a lot of people pulling that one. I'm sure you're not sick of that one.
Come on. This is probably... Mike's probably on a laptop here on a coffee table. Oh, no, he's got a mic
laptop there. On a coffee table on my couch with half of my world map in the background. Mostly because... I've told this story on a few other podcasts.
Where's your diploma? Where's your fancy bookcase? Where's that fancy bookcase for your green screen and everything?
I don't have a green screen. I actually have a bookcase. I've done things there before. I have 3 bookcases actually that are in my living room. I'm staring at them right now.
Oh wow, look at you.
But what I was going to say is no. So the deal with this map, right? And it's why I only show half of the map I want to start marking off countries. So for those who are watching this that are while you're in commercial break, they can get this little story. I started I traveled a lot back in the olden days and olden times pre-COVID, and I started marking off countries.
Middle Ages.
Yeah, so I started marking off countries that I've been to because they have maps like that. My map is not that. So I started taking a black Sharpie and just coloring in the countries I had been to. Well, the problem I started realizing was that I had been to so many countries in Europe that their borders were like next to each other that it just started looking like this mass. So now, like, if I have this map, it looks like I colored in like it looks like I've eliminated Portugal and England and Scotland and
you're part of the globalist what do you call it? Cabal, you know?
Yeah,
no borders everywhere.
So I started outlining, so you can like see, I think, sort of like the outline of the United States and Canada on there. But no, I'm going to buy a different world map. And
no, that's
one
cool.
that has like the peel back things, because that would make me feel a little better.
Yeah, God, like I went to a bunch of places when I was younger. I just haven't been able to travel much since. But I remember I keep telling people still, like, I've been to 2 Olympics in my life, and one of them was Australia. And it's just, if you get a chance to get outside the country, you take it, man. Every time, it's awesome. I still want to try to give.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, stuff the Olympics.
If there's one thing that COVID has obviously incredibly first world problem, but I've missed traveling a lot, because traveling has been such an important part of my life over the last decade that it's definitely been a little bit weird. And I think that to me will be the sign that things maybe are really back to normal when I get on a plane to go to a country other than the United States.
Yeah. Quick question from Blabadon. He says, does Chris Spielman have any executive roster decisions, or is it solely culture? That's probably another one we don't know. Yeah.
The way that it's been explained is culture.
Right.
But I mean, if he's sitting in on the meetings and he has an opinion, Chris Spielman doesn't strike me as the person who's like not going to give his opinion.
Right. And plus,
he's just there to do color commentary.
One of the interesting things he said during the Tori Petrie podcast is that he has broken down linebacker film for the team.
Well, honestly, like that's something he probably should do, because he would, if there's one position Chris Spielman's going to know, it would be linebacker.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he was a different type of linebacker than what you need maybe now in
like
the
30
modern
years
NFL,
ago,
but
too.
he still knows his linebackers. He understands what makes a good linebacker and what doesn't.
Yeah. I just thought that was interesting. Again, I called him the Swiss Army knife. I think he called himself the jack of all trades, master of none. But like, it feels like he's doing everything right now. He said he called a season ticket owner that was trying to give up his tickets. You know, he sat down on all these interview processes where he's interviewing like every new college or every new coach to see what One Pride means to them and give them information about their family and all that sort of stuff. It's interesting.
Honestly, imagine you're that season ticket holder getting that. Like, I mean, what? Like, you know, you're Johnny Smith and you're canceling season tickets because it's been a rough year, as we all know, and
sure.
You know, and Chris Spielman calls you back, hey, why are you getting? Well, you know, I can't afford them anymore. Like,
doesn't believe in the culture.
I don't know. I had not heard that story. That was a new one for me.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, listen. He literally said in his first press conference he was going to do everything and wanted to like learn everything. So clearly that is happening.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. If Chris Spielman called me and made me buy season tickets, I think I would start like a lemonade stand. Like I would do whatever I could. I would beg for subscriptions on Twitter.
If Chris Spielman called me, I'd probably try to speak in his native tongue and just start barking into the phone. Apparently that's what he does.
All right, are we ready to get back into the second segment here?
I've been told I have to be nice to the guest. I am always nice to Mike. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
All right, I have no problem with Chris. Chris is good, man.
I want to play. I like to play. It's what I do. We have to. I'm like making these things fun.
I was gonna say, I'm a New Yorker. Like, if there is not some level of, even though I've lived in the Midwest for a long time, I'm a New Yorker. If there's not some level of like sarcasm or biting, you know, not kneecaps. I don't really know exactly what to do.
Fair enough.
It's like half the guys I work with too. Like, God, Andy Furman constantly talking about Brooklyn all the time.
Mark off your bingo card. Fox Sports Radio reference.
Look what I'm holding right now, Jeremy. Look what I'm holding right now.
I mean, that's going to be the middle square right there.
I am not allowed to apparently talk about my work. I'm sorry.
No,
I have multiple jobs.
I didn't say you're not allowed to. I'll just say we all have our little archetypes
bingo
and
cards.
bingo cardisms.
Well, we could actually think about it as squares if you want.
Super squares?
Oh, here we Let's get back into this.
By the way,
let's go.
I do have the recorder on, by the way, Chris.
Yeah. On what?
You sent me that message if I had the recorder.
Oh, yeah, no, I just because I was getting water, I didn't hear the voice, so I just wanted to make sure.
Mike heard it.
Because we've done that
and
before.
gave a look, because everyone gives a look when they hear this call is being recorded voice.
The call is being recorded. All right, let's go.
All right. And we are back with First Bite, here with ESPN's Michael Rothstein to talk some Lions football. Let's get into the offseason ahead because we're only a couple weeks away from free agency. Big things are going to happen even before then. And so let's talk. I really guess the biggest domino yet to fall with the Detroit Lions, and that's Kenny Golladay. We didn't get a lot of answers, I don't think, really from the press conferences there. They kind of walked around what they're going to do, saying they're keeping all their options open. They're exploring every option with him. Do you have a gut feeling, Mike, of what's going to happen with Kenny Golladay? Is he going to stay in Detroit? Is he going to get a franchise tag? Is he going?
You know, if you asked me this question 2-3 weeks ago, my answer would have been, I think they tag him and try to trade him. I know there's some numbers out there that's not all that common, but it happens like once a year. So there is no reason to think that, especially if you turned it around in a short time frame before really free agency got going in a heavy way, then I think it's something that could potentially work. Or you maybe hope out that somebody loses out on free agency and goes from there. I don't really know. I can see them go, like, any direction they go would not surprise me. And I asked Brad Holmes specifically about whether the cap number and whatever that cap number is plays a role, and he didn't say no.
Right.
And that to me was kind of maybe an indicator, and I think you've seen it around the league, right? I don't believe, maybe I missed one, but I don't believe anyone's been tagged yet. And I think part of that is people are trying to wait to see what this number is, because the difference between 180 million and 185 or 186 million with some guys and some tags and some cap situations is the difference between wanting to keep the guy around for a year or not. And I think that's maybe the situation for the Lions too, because listen, they made one move today to free up some room, and they are planning to release Desmond Trufant, as ESPN's Adam Schefter reported. I anticipate there will be more moves coming because they still do have to get under the cap. But I think if they decide they want to keep Kenny Golladay around, then tag him. But again, knowing kind of that this is a long-term plan, long-term rebuild, I think if you are tagging Kenny Golladay, you're pretty much punting on this free agent class, because you're just not going to have the money to do it unless you're tagging him and trading him right away. And that to me is where it gets a little bit interesting. And if you that's the other thing too. And I said this, I did a Clubhouse on Tuesday thing, and also I've said it a couple other places. If you let him walk, it probably also means you're not necessarily going to be big players in free agency, because you're probably going to be trying to get that third round comp pick back. And so you don't want to go spend big in free agency. Now, I look at what is out there in free agency. I don't know whether the Lions would be big players for many people out there right now. There's a couple guys that would make a lot of sense, but again, it's a finance plus age situation, because if you are going to sign someone who's a bigger ticket free agent, you're probably looking at a 4 or 5 year deal on a guy who's 25, 26 years old. Like that. I don't think you sign anyone 28, 29 years old. You sign new tree. Like what's that going to get you? Because all indications are the plan is to be really competitive by 23, right? I mean, like that, everybody seems to feel like that, at least maybe outside the organization. Right. But they've even said they want to build this thing sustainably, and they want to build through the draft. So I can't see them throwing a lot of money at somebody who's not going to be still in their prime or a foundational piece in 2023 and 2024. And the question too, frankly, is whether Kenny Golladay is that. And I don't know the answer to that, because he'll be hitting 30 and he's a big-bodied wide receiver. And that can get a little bit dicey if injuries start to really take their toll. And he's had some injury problems in the past, although, I think that could easily go away.
Speaking of big-bodied wide receivers, do you think, the Lions just signed Terrell, or at least agreed to terms to sign Tyrell Williams? Nothing's official until the league calendar begins here. But they're going to sign Tyrell Williams. He has Anthony Lynn background and everything, but he does kind of fit that same profile as Kenny Golladay, a big 6'4", big-bodied receiver, just more kind of like Marvin Jones than Golladay, but still like they're already spending on one wide receiver out there to try to replace up to 5 that they're currently looking at who are their unrestricted free agents. And as far as I see as Terrell Williams, it might be a sign that they're just not going to, they're going to let Kenny Golladay probably explore free agency at this point.
Possibly. It's entirely possible. I took that more as what we all kind of knew, which is Marvin Jones and Danny Amendola aren't coming back. And that is kind of that Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola role that I think that Tyrell Williams will play. And it's interesting because Tyrell Williams, the second he hit the market, everyone really seemed to believe and think that he was going to end up in Detroit because of that connection with Anthony Lynn. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible that you might be right, Chris. That is entirely possible. Plus, I think a receiver at 7 in the draft would make a lot of sense. And then you've got you've got a future one, potentially a receiver if you're using them at 7, whether that's Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, or Jamar Chase.
Or since Ryan's not here, I'll just throw in Kyle Pitts too, just in case.
I mean, listen, I don't think they're going to – that would be – of any player that they could take, that would be the one that would surprise me the most, other than like somebody completely out of nowhere that's like that they could probably have had at a different spot. But that to me could be the future of the receiver room. And, it wouldn't shock me if it wouldn't, like I said, it wouldn't shock me anyway. But I think Tyrell Williams was a smart signing for them because, again, you want somebody who knows the offense, which he's going to know. You want somebody who's going to understand the culture that Anthony Lynn's trying to bring to the offense. He's going to have that. So that to me was a smart signing. And as I said, I think it's more a, final obvious. We all knew that Marvin Jones and Danny Amendola weren't going to be back. But to me, that says absolutely that that's not going to happen. And I think that they can kind of figure out the Kenny Golladay stuff. I think that's separate maybe from the Tyrell Williams decision.
Yeah.
That's at least how I take it. But I could be wrong too, because if they decide they want to really target a receiver at 7, then maybe that is the sign that, they're going to move on from Kenny Golladay.
And Tyrell Williams kind of represents that kind of signing that you think the Lions are going to make. And I think you're right there. It's those short one-term kind of prove-it deals because, he is a 27, 28-year-old guy. He's probably not a guy that's going to be a guy of the future, a guy that you're leaning on. But for establishing the culture in the first year, I think you're right. He makes a ton of sense there. The one thing with Kenny Golladay, though, with franchise tagging him, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is there a chance they're going to use that simply to buy more time to make him a long-term offer? Because to me, I'm with you. It doesn't make a lot of sense to give him 16.4 or whatever it's going to be million for 1 year if you're going to move on. But it does buy them some extra time to potentially get that long-term deal. And maybe he's a guy that they do believe in as a guy that can be a part of the team 3-4 years down the road.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's a possibility. You heard what they said, that they believe he's a number 1 wide receiver. Yeah. And those guys as many receivers are coming into the league now and as much talent as there is at the position, number 1 receivers still are rarities. And guys with Galladay's skill set, in a lot of ways, are rarities because he is more of a contested ball receiver. He's a guy who can win in tight spaces. And let's be honest, if they're going to give Jared Goff an honest evaluation, and by all accounts, they're going to give him an honest evaluation in 2021 to see if he can be the future, because that solves your quarterback problem if you do that.
Yep.
Then you need a receiver that you can count on. And that could be Kenny Golladay. So you may, if your real thought process is you want to compete by 22 or 23, maybe you do that because that also gives you a better evaluation of Jared Goff in your offense and in your system. And I think Brad Holmes is clearly a believer in Jared Goff. So I don't think it would be fair to Jared Goff to try to evaluate his ability on the future if your wide receiver core is, Tyrell Williams, Jalen Waddle, Quintez Cephas, and 2 other guys. That's a tough evaluation to make. Now, if he plays well in it, then
right.
But so I think that to me is like this little hidden part of this, right? that they want to maybe be to get a real true evaluation there of whether you're going to have the 2017 or 2018 Jared Goff, or you're going to have the Jared Goff for the last 2 years that did not necessarily play as well.
Since we're on Jared Goff, let me ask then, because I know we just had this conversation on our podcast, and I know, we still need to see if quarterback is like something the Lions target in the first round of this draft. But we just got done talking in our last podcast about whether or not you restructure Jared Goff's contract, reduce his cap hit for this year, and maybe look at him that you're just holding on to him potentially for more than, at least the next 2 years. Like, where's your position on that?
I mean, I think it maybe depends on how active you want to be in the free agent market. It depends on how much you actually believe in Jared Goff, and it depends on who you can get. Like, so let's just, for argument's sake, right? Let's say you franchise Golladay, you want to make a real legit offer at John Johnson, because that could bolster your secondary, and he's 25, 26 years old, so you maybe offer him a 5-year deal, again, to be a foundational piece. And say you want to keep Romeo Okwara. Like, let's just say that. That's your free agency plan. Or go after, say, Trey Hendrickson, who's 26 years old. Again, that youngish pass rusher. Pass rushers also tend to hit their prime more in like 29, 30, 31 versus other positions. So if that's your plan, then yeah, I think you need to restructure Jared Goff. And you probably also want to, because like you're starting to build that foundational piece. If you're not going to be active in free agency at all, and you make enough cuts to get down to where you have enough money for the rookies and enough money for some other guys here or there, maybe you restructure, but you don't have to that's the thing with restructures. You don't have to restructure the whole thing. You can restructure $3 million of it, and that's not gonna kill you down the road if you want to move on from him at some point. You could probably even restructure, I would say, up to $10 million of it, and I don't think it would do you that much damage, provided the salary cap gets, once everything with COVID hopefully gets straightened out, back to where it was in the past. So again, those are all different machinations that come into play, and I think we'll get a sense of the Jared Goff restructure conversation. I think we'll get a sense probably by the time free agency starts, because if the Lions make a couple of big moves in that tampering period before they can actually even have Jared Goff on the roster to restructure that contract, then I think we know that a restructure is coming. If they do nothing, then maybe they just ride it out and don't restructure it, or restructure a smaller portion of it. But those are all options. And I mean, listen, restructures are common. Like, they are. I mean, they happen with every team. And I mean, think of how many times Matthew Stafford's got restructured. I think of how many times Calvin Johnson, when he was with the Lions, got restructured. It was like a yearly thing almost. So I think Marvin Jones even got restructured at one point. Yep. So that, to me, I think is kind of like, they'll do it if they need it, and every team has that in their back pocket. So I think that we'll see whatever moves they make, and that'll tell us whether there'll be a restructure there. I can't imagine them restructuring the whole thing. Right. That would be, especially with the way they've talked. I mean, even Dan Campbell said it, that maybe they don't go after the big free agents, but they go after like the under the radar gritty guys. Paraphrasing, but that to me is okay. Maybe you need a few million to make that happen, but you don't need to restructure like the 20 plus million of it to then hamper you down the road and put yourself in, salary cap purgatory.
Well, while we're on the quarterback topic, let's fast forward to the draft here, because you had that conversation with your coworker there, Mel Kiper Jr., and he seems convinced that the Lions should pass on a quarterback with the 7th overall pick. They've got bigger needs. They kind of have to maybe develop a core around a young quarterback before going quarterback. The Lions have kind of talked their way around that. We heard Brad Holmes say specifically, like, if you're in the top 10, you have to at least do your research. Dan Campbell, he was on Dan Patrick today, and he said something like, we like where we're headed at quarterback, but we're keeping all of our options open. Based on everything you've heard, based on your own opinions, is quarterback still on the table right now at 7?
I mean, I think it depends how the draft plays out, right? Sure. I mean, like that's if all of a sudden Justin Fields or Zach Wilson is sitting there at 7, and you like them, you love them, you take them. What has happened to me between getting Jared Goff and getting those extra first rounders in 22 and 23 is this offered the Lions flexibility. Yeah. Because now they can either package those assets to get up in this year's draft, if they really, really wanted to, but they can package those assets to get up in next year's draft if Jared Goff's not your guy, or even in 2023 if Jared Goff is not your guy. And, to me, that's where I think that all helps. And I think if the right player is there, I think they'd take him. But I don't get the sense that it's this have to have him type situation, because that's the thing, too. If you're picking at 7, that might be the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the draft. Well, that's nice, but you can probably get the second best. If that ends up being the case, you can either get the best offensive lineman in the draft and your tackle situation solved for the next half decade, or you can take the second best, or maybe worse, third best, but they're so interchangeable, based on the board, that receiver, or you take the best defensive player in the class. Although I kind of agree with Mel Kiper that I think 7 is probably too high for a defensive player, but that's the beauty of it too, is if there is a team out there that loves Trey Lance, if Trey Lance is still there, or loves Mac Jones, if Mac Jones is still there, with Carolina sitting at 8 and Denver at 9, and, a Washington or a New England, or, heck, even Carolina in, fear. And we've seen that trade up 1 pick scenario before.
Yeah.
You can get more draft capital. And what does Brad Holmes want more than anything in the world, I think, right now, is draft capital. Yep. And we've seen that. So I think that that's maybe why I would not expect them to take a quarterback, because I don't think they need to. But it would not, if the right guy fell to them and they felt like that was their franchise guy for the future, it wouldn't surprise me if they did. One thing that I thought was really interesting that a couple people had said to me, I think it was Mel Kiper that said to me, is that, this is the most mysterious draft out there. There's so many unknowns.
Yeah.
So I think if there's a known commodity you can take, you take it. That's me. That second part is me. If there is a known commodity in this draft, you take that known commodity over the unknown commodity, because there are so many unknowns with everything that is out there. And to me, that's just kind of how I see it. I would be surprised if they took a quarterback, but if the right quarterback was there, I wouldn't be sitting there in April and be like, oh, wow, they took a quarterback. Oh, my mind is blown. No, I'd be like, all right, clearly this is the guy they believe in. And you kind of see what they do with everything else down the road after that. I think the last thing I would say on this, I think there are 2 schools of thought here when it comes to quarterback, right? One is you get your franchise quarterback first and you build around that quarterback. The other is what I call the Tampa Bay model. And I don't think Tampa Bay did this model purposely, but it is kind of what happened.
Yeah.
In that they built the rest of the team and a really strong team. And then they went and got the quarterback and an ancillary piece last. And that's what put them over the top.
Yeah, that's old. That's old school. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the Lions could, with all of this draft capital, right? They could do that over the next 3 years. And then I'm trying listen, we all see what's going Russell. I'm just going to throw this out there. 3 years from now, Russell Wilson, right?
Or Deshaun Watson.
But whatever it is.
Yeah. Either one. Yeah.
30s guy, right? That wants to win a title. The Lions have come. I'm just saying that if you build the rest of the team and your last piece is a quarterback, it seems like more and more there are veteran options available that are good. Now, we've seen that because look at it last year. Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, both those guys got their teams to the playoffs. And that to me is a sign that if you want to go that model, if you can find the right quarterback, you can. And then also what it does too is it extends your window theoretically, because if you go on top of that and then draft your rookie quarterback behind that guy, then you got the rookie quarterback and you can still pay all those other players. It's a different way of looking at things than I think people have done in the past. Yeah. But that to me is maybe that not done purposely, but that Tampa Bay model is really intriguing to me of what could potentially be something that teams might try to emulate in the future.
It's a really good point. And I think we're going to close on that. Before we do, though, Mike, let me give you the floor to promote whatever you got out there. Maybe if you got some upcoming stories. I know at some point you teased you got a really good quote, and I don't know if you can tease us what that was from or anything. Okay,
so my really good quote actually ran on Wednesday.
Oh.
It was Tuesday. So it was a boxing quote. It had nothing to do with the Lions, which I basically tried to say. I wrote about Clarissa Shields. She's actually fighting on pay-per-view tomorrow night. It's the first female first pay-per-view card headlined by a female fight in 20 years. It's the first all-female women's pay-per-view card. and Clarissa Shields, who's from Flint, is headlining it. So I spent a good amount of time over Zoom and whatever talking with her. And one of the other fighters I spoke with, who's not on this card, gave me a quote about how basically, I'm going to paraphrase this, go read the story, like boxing is the bad boyfriend compared to MMA, and like MMA is the one with the Cadillac and the nice car. And it was just, it was the most real quote I've gotten in a while. I tweeted it a couple of times because that to me was like the money quote. I do have some stories coming up. I can't really talk about them right now. I have one I believe is running this weekend that I've been working on for a while and I'm really excited about. I've got a couple other coming down the road, some profiles, some features that would be kind of obvious based off of who's been hired that I've been working on. So Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, I don't think that's like a secret type thing, as most people will probably be working on those. But I've talked to some really interesting people, and there's some stuff I have, at least as of now, knock on wood, that no one has written about yet. So that's basically what I've got coming up. You can follow me on the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, now Clubhouse too, at Mike Rothstein, Facebook at Michael Rothstein Journalist. And yeah, I'll be just, hunkering down, busy during free agency like always. And yeah, I'm trying to do Clubhouse chats maybe once a week. And, if y'all want to come by, and it's going to be very free flowing, ask whatever questions. There's not going to be much of an agenda. It might be very much similar to like the mailbag versions of my podcast, only you actually get to talk this time, back when I have my podcast. So thank you all again for having me. I always love coming on the show. It's always a blast. And we always seem to go longer than Jeremy wants to, which makes me happy because that
makes me happy.
I feel like there's just like a little bit of annoyance with him when we go longer.
How dare you?
That Mike, let me let you on a secret. That's Jeremy all the time.
What? Chris, you're the one that's always hurrying up the show. You've got the radio guy where we got to get to break. I'm fine. I'm chilling. This is my job.
When do I hurry us along?
All the time. Chat, how many times do you see this from him?
Don't appeal to chat. This is for the recorded version of the podcast. They are not part of it. They will get their time.
But Mike, we obviously always appreciate you joining the show. You're a blast to have here, and you bring a bevy of information as well, which we appreciate. So thanks again for joining us. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back with the main podcast Monday nights live on our Twitch and YouTube pages. You'll get it on the podcast feeds Tuesday mornings. But until then, thank you all for listening. It's chaos. Be kind.
Call recording off.
Okay. So the recording is off. I need to make clear because I screwed this up with Justin Rogers last week. We are still live, Mike. Okay. So anything you say right now.
Because I was about to say something.
Yeah.
Chat's right. It is Ryan who rushes us along because Ryan's always got places to be.
That's Ryan. Yeah, that's
he's busy.
He's got a
legitimate reason.
He's got a family. We're living the solo, one room apartment.
I am the 30-year. I am the Doomer Wojak here, guys. That's who I am.
I'm 40. I'm 40 and I live by myself. So I don't know what y'all are talking about.
This is now a bachelor podcast.
No.
Okay, you're out. Okay, never mind.
No, I'm out. If that, we do not talk
contestant
about
number one, contestant number two, contestant number three.
I respect people who I so I shouldn't. So this is still going on in a chat. I don't know how many people are there, but so back when, again, the olden times, I watched a couple seasons of The Bachelor pretty religiously. And I thought, I always kind of judge based off of the people. Like I watched the first episode or two, and if I think the people on the season are interesting, I'll watch. And if I'm not sold on it, I'm not going to. But I was in New York, and they do like bachelor watch parties in New York, and I was just like, I have a lot of female friends that are super into The Bachelor, so I was always curious like what a bachelor watch party would be like in a bar, because it was in a bar. So I go, my friend who I was staying with, who actually he works for NBC Sports, like we've known each other for about a decade, like great guy. He had like a work meeting that ran late, and I told him, hey, meet me at this place after. Because I was just curious. I think it was like the finale or like this penultimate episode of the season, whatever it was. And I go to this bar because I'm like, I just want to know, is it like football games? Like are they like cheering, whatever? You would, when the show would be on, like the sound would be up, like you would see for like a big fight or a college football game or an NFL game, but it would be silent because you need to hear the dialogue, right? But there would be cheering or whatever. Not only that, this bar in New York brought in like 7 or 8 like Bachelor like contestants from like the past years. They had lines to take pictures and with autographs. I was like, this was that. I turned like when my friend got there, I turned to him and I'm like, so this is basically just like watching a sporting event. Like I was blown away at this because I was shocked. It was awesome. It was really awesome to see. And I had a friend text me and so there was like a few contestants there and I don't get my picture taken with anybody. It's just not what I do. It's just not my thing, right? But like one of my friends, like she's a big fan of the show, and she texted and I told her who was there, and she's like, "Oh, you have to get a picture with this one person." So I happened to see her, and she was walking out, so I stopped her. And I'm like, "Listen, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really know who you are, but my friend says you're like a really big deal. Like I apologize. Like that's really like a bad thing to say." She's like, "I'm sure you don't know who I am," and I'm like, "No, I really don't." Like she wants me to like take a picture with you. I don't really know. So I did. And my friend was like super happy. And that made her day, my friend's day. I'm sure that did not make my day or the person who the Bachelor's day. But
I'm not sure leading off with the, I don't know who you are was the move there.
Jesus Christ.
Well, the things we do for our friends, right? I said it a little bit more tactfully than that. I'm paraphrasing, but
Jesus Christ. I don't believe what's happening right now.
I don't.
But let's be honest. Think about how many times that probably happens in reverse, right? Like,
sure,
you see an actor, an actress, an athlete, your significant other or your good friend knows who that person is. You're not really sure, like at all, but that person's like, "Oh, take a picture of that," like, or go like talk to that person, like. That happens.
Yeah.
Like those things happen. Sure. I don't know.
I mean, not as much to me because I think one of my big girl friends believed that pictures stole parts of people's souls. She was kind of that weird nerdy girl like that. So we never took pictures. We never took pictures.
I'm not a huge picture person myself. I'm not a big fan of that. That comes from some other stuff which I'm not going to talk about on this podcast. So
I think we know why.
No, I promise.
Oh no. It's not that. I know.
I promise you. You could guess. I'll give you 3 guesses, and if you get it, I'll admit it.
I'm not even gonna.
No. Listen, we go some weird places with our conversations with you, Mike. I'm not going there.
Okay, no, it's
not completely there.
It's honestly nothing weird. I think it's even been brought up in the press room before at some point. So it's not anything weird or like bad at all. It's just quirky. Whatever. So I was a child model.
Jeez. Okay.
I did not know that.
I'm good. I'm good.
I was a Kids R Us model when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, and then that ended. But I was a model. I was a Kids R Us model. So, and for whatever reason, like I don't like taking pictures after that.
I probably wore some of the stuff you modeled then. Probably.
I mean, I know. My friends don't believe me because they look at this now and they're like, no. But no, I have the actual proof because like I was in like the big like light boxes, the shadow boxes in the windows. And I have one of them still, like that my parents saved. So
wait, you have like a cardboard cutout of yourself?
No. Oh God, no.
Oh.
No. No, it is like, like in light, like they're like shadow boxes, like light boxes, basically.
Okay.
Like giant.
Yeah.
It's that. That I was in when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. Yeah. I like there's a picture somewhere. I think I've actually posted that photo on my Instagram at some point. I was a cute kid. But like I said, I don't know what happened since. So those who are in the chat right now are probably like, what is going on?
No, this is about equal for our chat. And I see chat's already asking questions about the girlfriend I mentioned. Her name was not Ruby Lions Blood 20 and data to which confirm. I mean, like Midwest girls in Wicca, man. I don't know. Like, I mean, she has a DeviantArt account too, so that should tell you more about what she is.
I don't even know. I don't know what that is either, man. You're talking.
I know.
At this point, so
yeah, I know. I'm in that weird. Yeah.
Let's close it up there.
Now that we've got that embarrassing story out of Mike, and we'll use it.
My child modeling days for the night. So
yeah, someone on Twitch is going to clip that for sure.
But thanks, Mike, again for joining us. Hopefully, I'll get to see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, that would be great.
Who knows when when
I'll
work will
one
allow
of
it.
these days.
But yeah, buckle down. Gonna have an interesting couple weeks ahead. So.
Oh, I'm getting ready for it.
Yeah.
Take care, y'all.
See you, Mike. All right, chat. I think it's probably time for us to go find someone to raid as well. If you want to stick around on Twitch, find someone that we like.
I agree with Joshua Mercer, by the way. This is taking a really weird turn.
It always does. It always does with Mike.
No,
but
weirder
that's
than we
what's fun.
usually go. Weird. No, it's always fun with Mike.
It's always fun and it's always weird with Mike. Like those things go hand in hand, and I'm fine with it.
We hit on something, and then it's just like I'm just playfully ribbing him, and all of a sudden, before you know it, we're getting a discussion about child modeling. Like you just pick away, and all of a sudden he's like, "No, I'm not going to say something embarrassing about myself," and then he just freely offers up the embarrassing information. It rules, man. I could only wish it was this easy.
Does not look like Graham is streaming anymore. He was earlier. Let's go to our friend Darth Hippo, a big supporter of the channel.
All right.
Lions fan through and through.
By the way, we haven't pimped the Discord enough lately. If you guys haven't been on the Discord, in Twitch chat, !Discord, I'm doing it right now. Get you the Discord link. I've got plenty to do for the Discord. I know I've been saying that for a few weeks now, but we still have a lot of good conversation going on there with about all this stuff.
Yep.
So
basically just like a Lions chat room, essentially. If you don't,
big old chat room.
But anyways, let's go check out our good buddy Darth Hippo. If you guys are ever streamers on Twitch, let us know. You can always promote yourself inside of our Discord, and maybe you'll get a raid from us every now and then. So we like to support our Lions fans, our community, and this is one way we can do it. So if you're here on Twitch, we're going to go raid Darth Hippo. Go enjoy him, ask him some Lions questions if you want, or just watch him. I think he's playing Valorant. So if you like Valorant, you like video games, go watch him go play some Valorant. But until then, we will see you soon. Be sure to join us on Locker Room Saturday mornings, 10:30 a.m., and then we'll have our full-on podcast Monday night. That's all I got, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to close up YouTube as well. So, bye, YouTubers. Go watch Michigan State or something.